When you think of a Roman gladiator, what comes to mind? A muscle-bound hero like Russell Crowe in Gladiator, fighting for honor and freedom. A willing warrior choosing a life of combat for fame and fortune. Well, get ready to have your mind blown, because the reality of gladiator life was far more complex, far more brutal, and way more twisted than anything you've seen in the movies. Forget the Hollywood glamour. We're about to dive deep into the dark, gritty truth of the Roman arena. So, who were these gladiators, really? Were they all condemned prisoners and slaves? While many were, the answer is more surprising than you'd think. Yes, a huge number were prisoners of war, criminals sentenced to death, or slaves sold to a gladiator school known as a ludus asterisk. For them, it wasn't a choice, it was a death sentence, or at best, a slim chance at survival. Imagine being captured in a foreign land and suddenly finding yourself in a training yard, with a wooden sword in your hand, and the threat of a real one hanging over your head. Your life as you knew it was over. But here's the twist: a surprising number of gladiators were free citizens who volunteered. Why on earth would anyone do that? For a few reasons. Some were ex-soldiers who missed the thrill of battle. Others were drowning in debt, and signing on as a gladiator for a fixed term could be a way to pay it all off and even earn a substantial prize. And then there was the allure of fame. Top gladiators were the rock stars of their day. They were celebrities, adored by the crowds, with their images scribbled on walls and their names chanted in the streets. For a poor Roman, the chance to become a hero, even a temporary one, was an intoxicating prospect. They would swear a sacred oath, the sacramentum gladiatorum legally becoming a slave to their master, the lanista for the duration of their contract. They willingly sacrificed their freedom for a shot at glory. Now, let's talk about the training. It was relentless. Gladiator schools were part prison, part boot camp. The men were housed in small cells, fed a specific, high-carb diet, mostly barley and beans, to build up a layer of fat. Why fat? It wasn't about looking soft. It was a practical form of protection. A layer of fat could stop a shallow cut from hitting a vital organ or major artery, making the fights last longer and appear bloodier for the cheering crowds, without being instantly fatal. They were essentially being bulked up for slaughter. Their days were filled with grueling exercises, mastering various weapons, and fighting styles. And this is where it gets interesting. Gladiators were highly specialized fighters. You had the gladiators, who fought with a net and trident, nimble and quick. Then there was the secular, the chaser, heavily armed with a large shield and sword, specifically trained to counter the gladiators. You had the frax with a small shield and a curved sword, and the myrmillo with a fish-crested helmet. These pairings were carefully chosen to create a dynamic spectacle, a classic matchup of speed versus power, agility versus defense. It was a deadly strategic dance, and every gladiator had to become a master of their specific craft to survive. So, fight day arrives. The city is buzzing. The amphitheater, like the Colosseum, is packed with tens of thousands of streaming spectators, from the emperor himself down to the common folk. But the gladiatorial combat wasn't the first event of the day. The morning was reserved for something even more horrifying, the nation's or wild beast hunts. Exotic animals from all corners of the empire, lions, tigers, bears, elephants, rhinos, were released into the arena to be hunted and killed, or worse, to execute condemned criminals in a gruesome public display known as damnatio ad bestias. This was the bloody appetizer for the main course. Then, the gladiators would enter the arena in a grand procession, the pompa. They'd parade before the emperor's box and utter the legendary phrase, though historians debate how common it actually was. "Hail, Emperor, we who are about to die salute you." The tension must have been unbearable. Now for the biggest misconception of all, that every fight was to the death. While death was a constant, looming possibility, it wasn't the goal of every match. Think about it from a business perspective. A gladiator was an incredibly expensive investment. Training, feeding, and housing them cost a fortune. The the owner of the school, didn't want to lose his valuable assets in every single fight. Referees, or oversaw the matches to enforce rules and could stop a fight if a gladiator was seriously wounded or clearly outmatched. So, what happened when a gladiator was defeated? He would drop his shield and raise one finger, a gesture of surrender, appealing for mercy, or missio. The ultimate decision rested with the editor, the sponsor of the games, who was often the emperor. He would gauge the crowd's reaction. If the gladiator had fought bravely and won the crowd's respect, they might scream for him to be spared, waving handkerchiefs. This is where the famous thumbs up or thumbs down gesture comes in, though its exact form is still debated by historians. A thumbs down might have actually meant swords down or spare him, while a thumb toward the throat gesture likely sealed the loser's fate. If mercy was denied, the winner was obligated to kill his defeated opponent. It was a brutal system where your life depended on entertaining a bloodthirsty mob. What about life outside the arena? Successful gladiators could achieve a level of fame and wealth unimaginable for most. They were idolized, receiving gifts and prize money. Some graffiti from Pompeii even brags about a gladiator being the delight of all the girls. They were the ultimate symbols of masculine virtue and courage in Roman culture, a rare few who survived their contracts or repeatedly distinguished themselves could be awarded the Rudes a wooden sword symbolizing their freedom. To go from a condemned slave to a free man, a celebrated hero, that was the ultimate dream, the slimmest of hopes that kept many fighting. But let's be clear, this was a brutal, dehumanizing existence. For every celebrated champion, there were countless others who died in the sand, their names forgotten. Even the survivors were covered in scars, physically and emotionally broken. They lived under a constant cloud of death. The gladiator wasn't just a fighter, he was a sacrifice. His struggle, his bravery, and his potential death were all part of a carefully orchestrated ritual for the entertainment of Rome. It was a system that glorified violence while consuming human lives. The movies give us the myth, but the reality was a twisted world of forced combat, desperate survival, and fleeting glory, where your life's value was determined by the roar of the crowd. So the next time you see a gladiator on screen, remember the real story. Remember the men forced into the arena, the volunteers who gambled their lives for a chance at fame, and the grim reality that every fight was a life-or-death performance. The truth of the gladiator is far more compelling and far more tragic than any Hollywood script. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the ancient world as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments which part of the gladiator's life surprised you the most. See you in the next video.